Thank you so much for coming out to our 7th and 8th grade open house tonight. My name is Dr. Bernasconi, and I am thrilled to welcome you to another school year and to be standing here and to welcome you tonight. The school year has been off to an amazing start. Your students are truly exceptional and are what make this place the special place that it is. So thank you for trusting us each and every day to help them down their path. We're really excited to collaborate with you this year and the years to come. Our job is hard. Raising kids is hard, right? I have a 5th grader here and an 8th grader here as well in the building, so I'm right in the midst of it with all of you. And the only way we can do it and be successful and truly help all of our students take that next step forward in their journey is through partnership. So I'm excited to welcome you tonight and hope that it's really just the beginning of many nights like this, many nights of communication, and a real partnership so that we can help each of our students take that next step. I'm thrilled to also have Christine Landwehrle with us here tonight, who is our Assistant Superintendent for SAU 39, because we're excited to share with you the next step in all of the work that's been happening behind the scenes for really the past 6 years. So over the past 6 years behind the scenes, over summers, during professional learning days, and all sorts of different PD opportunities, teachers across the SAU have been working to refine our curriculum. Gone are the days of just memorization of facts. Because we all carry around in our pockets this magic little box, right? Sometimes we say, hey Siri, but that contains more computing power than went up in the shuttle missions. So our culture has changed from one of just knowledge acquisition to what can you do with knowledge? We want students who can curate the information, solve problems, and apply it in new ways. And so to reflect that and reflect the changing nature of standards across the country, we've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes in terms of developing curriculum, rewriting assessments, changing what teaching and learning really look like. And we're finally to that last step, and we're excited to share out with you a way to better communicate, because we can't do it alone. And so tonight we're really thrilled that you could come and start with us so that we can share with you our next steps in communicating with you to more clearly understand where your student is really doing well and excelling, and where those places and those opportunities are to fine-tune their skills so that they can grow and take the next step in their journey. We also want our students to be a part of that, right? School isn't something that should happen to kids. We want to work with our students, and so helping them to better understand where they are and what they need to grow as learners. So we're really thrilled to share this work with you. Our goal in all of the work we've done, reshaping our curriculum, reshaping our standards, reshaping what teaching and learning looks like, is really twofold. One is to provide a consistent experience for your students, so that when your students finish 5th grade, we know they're ready for 6th grade. And those 6th grade teachers can pick up where they've left off. When they're ready for 7th grade, we know they're ready for 7th grade. And we know that each student is unique, right? Each student has a unique combinations of talents and areas to grow. And so we now have a better way to look at that to help them take that next step forward. We also want a consistent experience, not just from grade to grade and not just the middle school, but this work is really SAU-wide, so that we can ensure that once our students leave us here in 8th grade and walk across the street there to Southegan, that they're ready for that high school experience. And then once they progress each grade through, they're ready for what lays in the next step for them. The other piece, as I've mentioned, is greater communication, right? I often get the question, and I know you've probably had it at some point, I know I have it as a parent, when an assessment might come home saying, all right, so what'd you do, what do you need to work on, or what'd you do well, or what are your next steps? The very typical 5th grade and 8th grade answer is, I don't know. So our whole purpose is to increase our level of communication so that students better understand how to grow forward, parents understand how to help their students grow forward, and we can have that tighter partnership between school and home to really help our students be successful.
Feedback that we had gotten from parents was really around common expectations. Many parents would say to us, oh, I have twins or I have siblings that are very close in age, and I want them to have the same teacher. Because if they have different teachers teaching the same course, there are different expectations, and that shouldn't be in our system. If we're teaching 5th grade or 6th grade math, 5th grade math should look the same no matter what teacher is there. Not exactly exactly the same. We want our teachers to be able to have their voice and their personality come through in their teaching, but the expectations should be the same. The assessments should be the same. And that common experience is really critical for us. And we wanted to build our system K-12. So with our system, what we expect especially in English language arts, those competencies, what we're expecting in kindergarten, they build, but they're really the same competencies. We want students to be able to read literature and analyze it and use evidence from the text. We build each year, but they're common K-12, which is a really important piece. So currently, in prior years, your report card, you would have, your content areas such as math, and you would have a B. And that's the information that you would get from your report card. And many of us grew up with a report card like that, and it kind of worked for us, so we were comfortable with that. But it really doesn't give much information to you about your child as a learner. Does that mean your child did absolutely no homework and just happened to pass all of the tests? Probably getting A's on those tests, but that grade got brought down because of homework? Does that mean that your child was getting C's on most of the tests, but did all their homework and did extra credit and was able to get that B? It's not communicating enough. And we felt really strongly that in order to have a strong home-school partnership, we needed to communicate more about your child as a learner with their report card. Not just one grade all squished together, not giving you any information about how your child might collaborate or how your child might communicate with others. And those pieces are really important. So what we've done, we've moved to a system that really gives more specific feedback. So instead of just getting mathematics and B, you're going to know how they're doing with expressions and equations, how they're doing in geometry. And that's a 4-point scale on there. So with this student before, they just had a B. So you didn't really know how to help them or how they ended up with that B. But when you have a report card that breaks out our content areas really into competencies, you know this child's really strong with geometry and statistics. But they might be struggling a little bit with the mathematical practices. So you're able to reach out to the teacher and find out what you can do to support your child with that.
So we find analogies really helpful in explaining to students and explaining to anyone really about why the system works and what these different levels mean. So imagine, as we just said, our system has a 4-point scale. What does that mean? What is a 1? What is a 2? So imagine, and go back in your mind to when you might have taught your child to ride a bike. When you first start, the student is kind of approaching the bike, doesn't really know what it is or how it works yet, but is starting to gain familiarity with it, right? Before you can ride a bike, you need to know to put your feet on the pedals. You need to know how to steer. All of those pieces are foundational building blocks and incredibly important before you take the training wheels off and try to go on your own. So a level 1 is really when you're gaining familiarity. And as you gain familiarity, you start to pedal, and maybe you've got training wheels on that bike, and you're starting to gain confidence and familiarity. You're starting to understand better how it works. You're not quite independent yet. You're not quite to the point where you can say, yes, I am mastered riding this bicycle, but you're getting there. You're getting close. And again, you're building that important foundation and that understanding so that you can be successful. And then comes that harrowing moment that I'm sure we all remember, where the training wheels come off, and you are running behind as fast as you can with your hand on that seat, and suddenly those little legs start pumping faster, and you can't keep up anymore, and you have to trust and let go, and they take off cruising, right? They've made it. They're proficient. They've mastered riding that bicycle. They're really a level 3. And many keep going, right? Whether it's going on to bike in a road race or a triathlon. Maybe it's mountain biking that they take up next. Maybe it's going to the bike park and doing tricks. And maybe for some folks it's going way to that extreme and doing the X Games and doing flips and all of that kind of stuff. All of those pieces are different ways that that student is a 4, right? So they're proficient, but they're taking that next step beyond. So all of our students are moving along this continuum of a 1 to a 4. Another analogy that a 5th grade teacher just shared with me today that she used with her students was talking about football, coming off the Patriots. The Patriots when talking about, well, how are we ready to play football? Well, we're First, you need to know what a football is and maybe how to throw it. You're not ready to play a game yet. Then you got to learn the rules. And all of the foundational knowledge, those are what occur at our levels 1 and 2 before our students are ready for that next step to be proficient, to say they have mastered the standard, and then to provide opportunities to go beyond. And we feel really important, that it's really important in our system that there are opportunities for students to extend and go beyond.
One really important thing is that a 4 is not an A. You can't equate those two things. This is a completely different scale and a different system. So in a traditional system, you had that 100-point scale, which had A's and B's and C's. But that scale was really set by the teacher. It was the teacher that determined how many points each test was worth. And it was the teacher that determined how much homework was worth, or class participation. And that's a completely different scale. It's actually a norm reference scale. We're moving to a criterion reference scale, which means that we have criteria or standards. Those standards are our New Hampshire state standards. So we take the state standards that we base our curriculum off of, and we created statements that go under each of those competencies. So our system is built where the teachers have the criteria, and then they determine whether the student has met the standard, exceeded the standard, or is working toward that standard. Really that same 4-point scale. So just remember that a 4 isn't an A. The 3 is meeting expectations. That's what we hope all of our students are able to achieve. And we know in many areas, a lot of our students might even be working toward that 4 level and really exceeding our expectations.
And groups of teachers are getting together with student work and matching it to those scales that have been created for every standard that's in our board-approved curriculum to really talk about the student work. And they're meeting and talking with students and conferencing with students about where their work is and how to move forward with it.
You might have heard, your child might have said, well, I could only get a 2 on this. My teacher wouldn't let me get a 4. The way our system works, when you're beginning to learn that skill, it's like having that bike with the training wheels yet. We're not ready to take those training wheels off. We need to make sure that a child has those foundational skills before we take the training wheels off, before we're able to look at whether that child's able to master that skill. So in our system, when we first start learning in a unit, often we'll do a quiz or a check that might only be out of 2 points. So your child might be earning a 2 out of a 2. So if they come home and say, I wasn't allowed to get anything more, that might be accurate. And that test would show that that child's getting a 2 out of a 2, or whether it was a 2 out of a 3 or out of a 4. And as we move deeper into our learning and in our unit of instruction, students will be given opportunities to meet the standard, and in many cases to then show that they're able to exceed the standard.
And the reason for, again, that foundational knowledge is so critical to take the next step. And we feel like it's really important that students aren't penalized for the learning process. In the traditional system, if you need more help and you need that practice time, and you're taking an early quiz or an early assessment, it's out of 100 points, and you don't do quite so well yet, the way our system has worked is you actually are penalized for that learning process. What this does is it allows us to say, all right, this is practice, here's the expectation, we're building foundational knowledge. But before we're done, you're going to have lots of opportunities to show that you are a 3, that you are a 4 in the system. But we don't want to penalize you for the learning process. You know, when you take a driver's test, if by any chance you had to take it more than once, you don't end up with half a license, right? You end up with a whole license. And so it's really important that we're focused on the learning, honoring the learning process. Some students might be able to cruise straight through, and others might need extra help at certain points. And that can be any one child at any different time. So we're working really hard to make sure that we support the learning process rather than penalizing or turning kids off from learning in those early stages.
So this really reflects the learning process. So if your child really struggles in the beginning, or maybe they failed a quiz or a test, this system allows them not to be penalized for that part. When they've shown mastery, they've shown mastery. So what they did before, it really doesn't weight as heavily as what they did most recently. So it is, if you can ride a bike, you've reached proficiency, and we should be honoring that. So this does match and honor really that learning process.
So just to take a look at what is actually in these. And we're working right now to create a resource for you all too, so that you can dig as deep as you want into scores and into what our curriculum looks like. But each of those categories under mathematics, and this is just a 6th grade example, and I recognize that's small, but just to show you that, so the standard over there, the strand over there for geometry, well, what are students learning and doing? On the right-hand side, those are the 4 standards that are in our school board approved curriculum for geometry. So those are the pieces that teachers are instructing on, where students are working towards and being scored on. And those scores are what are then going into that geometry strand over there.
So you might be thinking also, so this sounds great for a report card, but what actually happens when our children need to go to college? They need a transcript, so what do? We have 4s and 3s and 2s and 1s, and that's not a typical transcript. And actually, there are many school districts and many states even that have moved to standards-based grading or proficiency grading. And colleges are used to receiving a variety of transcripts. They receive transcripts from private schools, boarding schools, international schools, and even homeschool students. So colleges are really used to seeing a variety of transcripts, and as long as we do a good job of creating our school profile, which Sauhegan is working on that school profile explains the transcript. It explains our curriculum, and it explains how we grade and report out. So you'll notice, I know you probably can't see this well, we are going to post this, and there is a link at the top to actually access the PDF so that you can look at this in detail. This is a sample transcript. This is not our exact transcript, but we are modeling ours at the high school after this transcript. And you'll see on the left-hand side, it lists each year the student was enrolled at the school and all of their courses, and then their proficiency level. And it does a really good job of explaining that grading system and what that proficiency system actually means. But what's really nice and very different about this transcript, and the Sauhegan transcript right now basically looks like the left-hand side, but actually they are converting or they have more letter grades right now. We'll be moving to fully standards-based and just the 1 to 4 scale. So Sauhegan's looks more like only the left-hand side. The right-hand side is really important. We have parents come to us and say, you know, my child does really well with writing, and they're an amazing reader, but they're really shy and they're afraid to present in class. So they don't do as well presenting. And that often gets lost in that grade. Just like that math grade was a B, their English grade is a B+. It's not showing that they're an incredible writer and they're an amazing reader. They just really struggle with presenting. So on the right-hand side, it would take all of the competencies, all those areas we broke out, and take all of the courses across their 4 years and give and show those competency scores. So you're actually getting more information on this transcript. And a lot of colleges, the feedback we've received is that they feel that a proficiency-based transcript like this actually is more valuable than a traditional one because they know the criteria that was used to score that student. It's not hidden, the criteria. They know it's a standards-based system. Recently, a consortium actually went out to colleges because more and more high schools are moving to proficiency-based grading with proficiency-based transcripts. So recently there were 70, and this is just in New England, and it doesn't mean it's only these colleges that accept it, but colleges actually pledged to accept proficiency-based transcripts and pledged to ensure that they wouldn't, it wouldn't harm a student's opportunity to get into these schools. And just because the school's not on this list, and this isn't the whole list, doesn't mean that the school doesn't accept a proficiency-based transcript. These were just the schools that signed the pledge. And interestingly, Harvard was worried about signing this pledge because they didn't want it to seem like they were changing their practice and that they hadn't been accepting proficiency-based transcripts. They had been doing that all along. So this is just a short sample. And really the most important part is that your transcript is clear and that your school profile is clear. And we're working with Sauhegan to finalize those pieces.
So a couple of other questions that we wanted to address, and we do have a parent handout for you and resources sent, because we recognize this is a lot, but felt like it was important to really have open and clear communication and make sure that you heard the information straight from us. So in our system, grades roll through the whole year. So the way we've done things in the past is whatever grade you had at the end of trimester 1 stuck with you. You had no chance to go back and improve. Think about something like writing. Our standards are actually year-end standards. So the expectations for the end of learning at the end of 7th grade, at the end of 8th grade. But if you're working on writing in an English class, you have a year to grow and develop and grow into a writer. The way the system was is those grades stuck at the end of trimester 1 and carried with you. So if you were really struggling in the beginning with your learning, you didn't have an opportunity to shape that. So our grades roll throughout the entire year and aren't finalized until the end of the year, so that students have lots of opportunities to continue to grow and continue to demonstrate their proficiency. One of the other pieces is honor roll. So we will still have an honor roll, but that will come out at the end of the year again, so that we continue to grow and continue to honor that student's work throughout the year. These are draft levels that we're working with, but there's an SAU 39 committee that's working on all of this together. That includes teachers, administrators, some parents, some of you in the audience, and community members to really help design the system to make sure that it's fair and equitable and that it clearly communicates these pieces that we're looking to. And the last piece is we're also working within our National Junior Honor Society charter to determine what that cuts for. Because our primary focus, too, in making the shift, and what we keep saying is, while we're making these changes, we want to make sure that we don't penalize students at all while we're implementing our system. So that is a really core value to all of the work we've done. It's all about the students. If it's not, then we have no business doing it. And so every decision that we make has our students at the heart of each decision, so that we can make sure we're helping them in the learning process and never penalizing them for our transitions.
So before, when you had that math grade of a B and you weren't sure how much was maybe participation and some of those other pieces, it was all mixed together, we've pulled that grade apart. So we have the academic competencies and those standards, so that academic side and where they are in their learning. But we also have a whole nother side that I'll explain to you, but this is a pretty important slide. We've shared this with parents before at other parent forums, and we have a lot of parents say, you know, this is exactly what I look for when I hire people at my company. These are the skills that employers need their employees coming with. They can't teach these skills, there's not time. They need their employees to come and be able to solve complex problems, to be able to think creatively, to be able to communicate and coordinate. So in our system, we've broken out those skills. They're called New Hampshire work study practices, and we've broken those out. They're creativity, collaboration, communication, and self-direction. And those will be separated on the report card and reported out. So you'll be able to see more about your child as a learner, not just the academic side, but how they're actually able to apply that learning and be able to coordinate and communicate. And we do have rubrics for those work study practices. We actually took a graduate course through SNU on the New Hampshire work study practices. Many of our teachers engaged in that, and we developed rubrics. We know this is too small for you to read, but we'll have these rubrics available on our website. And some resources.
Last but not least, we recognize and we hope that you very much view this too just as a beginning and an opening conversation, and I welcome you to continue the conversation, you know, throughout the year and throughout the years that your child is a student here and beyond. We can only do this work together. We are so much better together. Again, our students are really at the heart of every decision we make here, and so I'm confident that when we partner together, that really the sky is the limit for our kids. It really is. These are some different, and again, as Christine said, we'll post this also on the AMS website, and we'll post it. Our digital magazine for the SAU is One School Street. That's the address of the SAU, but One School Street is a digital magazine. It has a clearinghouse. If you want to dig more into this, it has all kinds of resources for you there. Two pieces I do want to leave you with tonight, and I will have 7th grade on this side and 8th grade on this side, is the National PTA has put together really nice one-page handouts that go through and talk about what the standards and expectations are in both math and ELA, English Language Arts, for 7th and 8th grade. So that's a handy guide to have as a parent. And then also please pick up one of the yellow sheets on your way out. That yellow sheet is just more information and more detail about what we've just talked about tonight. So, and it's written by parents for parents, so that if you have questions, you know how to talk to your kids or know what questions they might ask or have the answers when they come home and say, so I can only get a 2, so some of those P6. And again, Christine and I will be available in the lobby all evening here, so if you have questions or want to talk further, we encourage you to come up and talk with us. We're also, we're available via email. Please feel free to reach out. Again, we're only stronger when we work and partner together, so we're really excited to welcome you tonight. I couldn't be more thrilled to be standing up here as your principal, and really honored to have your students here in our school and be working with our teachers about the great learning that's happening in our classrooms. Before I send you on your way, I want to introduce you to 2 more folks who are new to our building, and hope that you will have a chance to introduce yourselves to them. So, Mr. Jesse Harlander is our assistant principal for operations, and Ms. Heather Jennings is our assistant principal for student services. So I am incredibly lucky to have a great team to work with, and again, just welcome and thank you.